The wind howled like a living thing. Snow blew sideways across the ice fields of Zaroon, cutting through the air like sharp glass. Visibility was almost zero. The temperature had dropped to 110 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze skin in seconds. Most people had already sealed themselves inside the mining station, but Cole Rayner, the human foreman, was still out in the storm. He pulled his thermal coat tighter and pushed forward through the thick snow. His goggles were iced over, and every breath he took turned to frost on his lips. One of the fuel lines had come loose outside the generator shack. Without it, the station would lose power, and if that happened, everyone inside would die. Cole cursed under his breath as he stumbled toward the edge of the metal platform. The snow was knee-deep now. The wind screamed. Then, he saw it. The line had been ripped loose, flapping like a dying snake in the storm. He bent down, fingers shaking, trying to lock it back into place. That's when he heard it. A soft sound. Not the wind, not a machine. A whimper. Cole turned his head sharply. He heard it again. Weak. Small. He took a step off the path toward a snow mound near the wall of the station, and then he saw them. Two small bodies, curled into each other, half buried in snow. Fur. Ears. Tails. Not human. Not machine alien cubs. He dropped to his knees. They were alive, but barely. Their chests moved in small jerks. Their tiny paws were stiff. One opened its eye just a little, then closed it again. "Damn it," Cole muttered. "What are you doing out here?" He looked around. No other movement. No big creature nearby. No adult coming to get them. They had been left, or lost. Either way, they would die here. Unless... Cole looked back toward the station. He had already fixed the fuel line. Now he had a choice. These things weren't human. They weren't pets. For all he knew, their mother could be 10 feet tall and hungry for meat. But they were small. They were freezing, and they were children. Without another thought, Cole pulled off his jacket. He wrapped it around the two cubs and lifted them into his arms. They were light. Too light. One of them gave a soft, rasping cough. "I've got you," he said. "You're not dying on my shift." Inside the station, the door hissed open with a blast of warm air. Two crew members looked up in surprise as Cole stumbled in, snow-covered and shaking, with his coat bundled in his arms. "What the hell, foreman? Call medbay," he said. "Now." He laid the bundle gently on a table. The two cubs were motionless. Their fur was soaked and stiff, but they were breathing. Barely. A station medic arrived minutes later. "I'm not a vet," she said, frowning. "These aren't on the approved species list." "They're alive," Cole snapped. "Do something." She wrapped them in heating blankets and attached micro-warmers to their tiny chests. After a tense few minutes, one of the cubs twitched. The other blinked, slowly, weakly. They began to move. Cole sat down heavily in a chair, letting out a long breath. Hours passed. The storm outside grew even worse. But inside, the two cubs slept under lights and blankets, recovering. Some workers came to look. Others asked questions. "Where did you find them? What if the mother comes back? What if they're dangerous?" Cole didn't answer much. He just sat there watching them. One of the cubs stirred and made a soft sound, almost like a purr. He smiled. "They would have died out there," he said quietly. "I couldn't let that happen." But late that night, something changed. Cole fell asleep in his chair. When he woke up, the cubs were gone. The blankets were disturbed. One of the heat lamps was knocked over. And on the metal floor were large paw prints, not cub-sized. Cole looked around quickly. No broken doors, no alarms, nothing stolen. But on his neck was a thin, shallow scratch. A perfect line, as if something sharp had touched him, without breaking the skin. He looked down at his jacket on the floor. It was folded neatly, too neatly. Cole stared at the doorway. His voice was quiet. Something was here. And far outside the station, deep in the icy wilds, two enormous feline shapes disappeared into the storm, silent, fast, and watching. The storm passed by morning. The sun on Zaroon was weak like a pale coin hiding behind clouds. Snow still covered everything, but the winds had slowed. Inside the mining station things were quiet. Too quiet. Foreman Cole Rayner stood by the window, staring at the empty table in the med bay. The cubs were gone, not escaped, gone. No broken door, no shattered glass, just two neat blankets and a folded jacket. His jacket. He called for security. They ran the camera feeds. Something was wrong. Between 03:14 and 03:18, the hallway footage blinked, static for exactly 4 minutes. When the feed returned, the cubs were no longer in the room. Cole frowned. That's not a glitch. The guard nodded. It's a blackout, like someone jammed the sensors. Someone? The guard hesitated. Or something. Cole walked out to the edge of the loading dock. Snow crunched under his boots. He followed the curve of the platform, heart beating faster. Then he saw them. Tracks, large, clean, non-human paw prints in the snow, leading from the back of the building into the open ice fields. The claws were deep, heavy. Whoever or whatever left them had come up to the station, then walked away. But what made Cole freeze wasn't the size. It was the direction. The tracks didn't just lead away from the station. They led toward it. He walked slowly along the path. At the far end, near a support beam, he saw something else. A mark scratched into the metal. 4 slashes curved. It wasn't random. It looked intentional. A symbol, a warning, a message. Cole ran his fingers over the lines. The metal was scorched slightly, burned. He looked out at the icy horizon. What came here last night? He whispered. Back inside, Cole reviewed the supply logs. A few strange things stood out. 1 emergency blanket missing. 2 food packets unaccounted for. No doors opened. No alarms tripped. The items hadn't been taken by accident. Someone had moved through the station like a ghost and left without a sound. By mid-afternoon, the scientists arrived. They scanned the tracks and took readings. Thermal energy still present, one said, meaning the creature was here less than 5 hours ago. Another looked at Cole. How did you survive? He shrugged. I slept through it. One of them raised an eyebrow. With a claw mark on your neck? Cole didn't answer, but in his mind he remembered a strange feeling from the night before, a warm breath on his skin. A shadow leaning close, not angry, not violent, just watching, then gone. Later, Cole returned to the med bay. He stared at the empty beds. Someone had come. For the cubs, and hadn't hurt anyone. No damage, no broken walls. Only one thing left behind, a single tuft of black fur on the blanket. He picked it up gently. The hairs shimmered faintly under the light. Not ordinary fur. It had tiny flecks of crystal embedded in it, like snow that never melted. The station workers whispered that night. They came for their young. They could have killed us all. Why didn't they? Cole sat alone by the mess hall window, the fur still in his pocket. He had no answers, but deep down something told him he hadn't just saved animals, he had saved someone's children, and now, someone knew his name. Back in the snowy wilds of Zaroon, under an ice-formed arch, 2 massive feline figures lay curled together. Their breath steamed softly into the cold air. Between them, the 2 cubs snuggled close, safe, warm, alive. One of the adults licked a deep wound on its leg. The other turned its glowing blue eyes toward the mining station in the distance and nodded. Not prey, not enemy, not forgotten. A life had been spared in the cold, and now, a bond had begun. 2 days had passed since the cubs disappeared. The skies above Zaroon were calm, but inside the mining station, unease filled every hallway. People whispered. Guards doubled their patrols, and Foreman Cole Rayner couldn't stop checking over his shoulder. That morning, Security officer Mira Chen called him into the control room. "We found something," she said, her voice low. Cole leaned over her shoulder. A frozen image sat on the screen. The hallway camera from the night the Cubs vanished. "The static?" he asked. Mira nodded. "We ran it through a deep frame recovery scan. Reconstructed 6 missing seconds." She pressed play. At first, the hallway flickered with digital noise. Then, movement. A shadow appeared, low to the ground, long tail, wide, pause. Another followed, even larger. They moved slowly, carefully, silently. Cole stared, breath tight in his chest. Both figures stopped outside the medbay. One pushed the door open, without touching it. "How?" he asked. Mira zoomed in. "Some kind of energy field. They didn't use tools, didn't break the lock." The taller one stepped inside. Seconds later, it returned, with both cubs gently held by their thick neck, fur. The smaller adult lingered behind, turned, and walked straight toward the camera, then paused, and did something that made Cole's skin crawl. It looked directly into the lens. Its eyes glowed faint blue. And on its face, for just a split second, there was an expression, not animal, not mindless. Recognition. As if it knew it was being recorded, then it stepped back and vanished with the others into the dark. Mira stopped the footage. They came in, took only their own, left no damage. She looked at Cole. They moved like soldiers. Cole didn't respond. He couldn't. His mind was spinning. That evening, a message arrived from the Zaroon Surface Wildlife Authority. It read, "No known species in this sector match the movement patterns, size, or behavior of the creatures seen. Consider unidentified, potential intelligence level, unknown. Proceed with caution." Caution? Cole shook his head. That wasn't what he felt. What he felt was watched. Later, in his quarters, he sat alone and stared at the folded jacket on his bed, the one he had wrapped around the cubs. He hadn't cleaned it yet. He didn't want to. There was something about that night he couldn't forget. Something that kept repeating in his head, a moment when he was half awake and felt something near his face. Not cold, not sharp, just gentle. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. He opened the door. It was Mira again. She held out a small data chip. "This is from the outer wall camera. We missed it during the storm," she said. "Watch the last frame." Cole inserted the chip into his console and played the short video. Snow blew hard. The view was shaky. Shape approached the station, huge and fast. It stopped just before reaching the wall. And then, for a single frame, it raised a front paw and touched the metal, not to attack, but to mark. 4 claw lines. Slow, deliberate. The same ones Cole had found near the support beam. Cole stared at the screen. It wasn't just coming to get them, he whispered. It was saying something. Mira frowned. Like what? Cole leaned back. I think it was saying, "Thank you." The next morning, the station woke to a new message. A crate sat outside the loading dock. No tracks. No signs of delivery. Inside was raw meat, fresh and wrapped in thick jungle leaves not found on Zaroon's ice plains. Attached was a thin shard of bone, carved with a strange symbol. Kelari, the station's xenolinguist, translated it slowly. It means, gift returned for gift given. Cole said nothing. He simply nodded and understood. He had saved 2 lives in a storm, and now the storm had brought something back. Not fear, not danger, but respect. In the distant cliffs of Zaroon, hidden in caves of ice and crystal, the feline beings sat in silence. One of the cubs, older now, pressed its nose to the wind, then let out a quiet sound, like a promise, like a bond. The message came at dawn, Not a transmission. Not a call. But a symbol carved into the snow just outside the station's gate. A spiral with 4 claw marks through it. The same mark Cole had seen burned into metal days ago. Kailari, the station's xenolinguist, was the first to speak. "That's not just a signature," she whispered. "That's a summon." Cole stood outside, cold air biting through his uniform. The mark in the snow was perfect, as if etched by a machine. But it wasn't. Something alive had made it. Something that didn't want war, but wanted something more. Security wanted to go. With him, Cole said no. "If they wanted to kill me, they would've. I'll go alone." "You're insane," Mira warned. Cole looked at the symbol again. "No," he said. "I'm invited." He left the station at midday, bundled in Arctic gear, beacon on his chest. The wind was light, the snow quiet. And yet Cole felt like every step was being watched. For 2 hours he walked across the ice plains, until he saw them, shapes moving in the mist, large, graceful, deadly. They didn't pounce, didn't growl. They simply waited. One stepped forward, massive, dark fur streaked with frost, eyes like glowing sapphires. It made a short, sharp sound, not an animal cry, something close to language. Cole didn't run. He slowly unzipped his coat and pulled out something small, a tuft of fur from the cubs, saved from the medbay blanket. He held it up, not sure why. The creature blinked slowly, then turned and began to walk. Cole followed. The journey led through ice pillars and into a narrow cave glowing with crystal light. The air grew warmer. And then he saw them. The clan. 10. Maybe 12 of them. Each massive, each silent, sitting in a wide circle, around a pool of heated spring water. The cubs, the same ones, were there too. Grown larger, but their eyes still familiar. One ran to him without fear, rubbed against his leg like a house cat the size of a lion. Cole couldn't help but laugh. "You remember me, huh?" A deeper voice echoed across the cave. Not a roar. Words. Hard to understand, but intentional. A translation device activated on Cole's wrist, blinking rapidly. He gave warmth, he gave shelter, and he asked for nothing. This debt must be returned. Cole looked around slowly. "Wait. You talk?" The largest bloodclaw stepped forward. Its voice was a deep, rumbling growl, but the words were clear now. "Few are worthy of the old tongue. Fewer still act with no reward. You carry honor, human, and we remember honor." They offered him a seat. Not a throne, not a reward, but a place, equal among them. The lead bloodclaw stepped close. With a single claw, it gently tapped Cole's chest. A glowing mark appeared over his heart. Not a brand, a symbol. Temporary, made of energy. "From this day forward," it said, "bloodclaws shall not hunt the one who bears this. He is not prey, he is protector bound." Cole didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded and bowed his head. Not as a soldier, not as a human, but as someone who understood what it meant to be trusted by something wild. He returned to the station late that night. Mira and Kailari were waiting at the gate. "Are you okay?" Mira asked. Cole opened his coat, showing the glowing mark on his chest. "Kailari," gasped. "That's an old clan sign, protector bound." "What does it mean?" Mira asked. Cole smiled, eyes tired. "It means, if anyone comes for me." He looked up at the stars above. "They'll have to go through them. And deep in the ice caves." The bloodclaws sat in silence once more. But tonight, they didn't speak of prey, or patrols, or danger. They spoke of a human, a strange creature who gave warmth in the cold, and who now, without knowing, had earned the loyalty of the last wild clan of Zerun. The storm had cleared. The skies above Zerun were too quiet. Cole Rayner stood on the outer platform of the mining station, staring across the endless white plains. His breath fogged the air. His hand brushed the faint glowing protector bound mark on his chest. For the first time in years, he felt like part of something. But that peace was about to break. The warning came from the outer drone net. 3 incoming ships, unregistered, no alliance codes. Cole and security officer Mira stood. Over the console, eyes locked on the radar. "Who are they?" she asked. Cole's voice was dry. "Not friends." Within minutes the ships landed, black and heavy, their hulls scarred by old battles. The doors opened, and armored mercenaries spilled out like shadows. At the front was a man in a red coat with cybernetic eyes. His name was Voss Trell, leader of a private mining syndicate. He didn't smile when he spoke. "You have valuable ice veins under your feet," he said. "We're here to take them." Cole kept his voice calm. "This is a licensed dig zone." Voss stepped closer. "Your license isn't backed by any fleet. No one's coming for you. Step aside or get buried." Mira raised her rifle. "Try it," but Cole raised his hand. "No." Everyone stared. "No fighting," he said. "Not yet." That night Voss's men surrounded the station. Lights shut off one by one. Power lines were cut. Snowdrifts piled against the walls. Inside the tow, station staff huddled in silence. "Should we send a distress call?" Mira whispered. Cole shook his head. "Won't reach anyone in time." "Then what do we do?" Cole looked out the window, past the snow, into the wilds, and said, "We wait." Just after midnight, the mercs moved. They breached the west wall with cutting torches, throwing smoke grenades into the main hall. They expected screams. They expected surrender. But instead, they heard something else. A low, deep growl. And then, silence. One of the mercs radioed, "We've got movement. Big shapes. Fast." The signal cut off. Another screamed. Then nothing. Voss watched from his command sled. "What the hell is that?" His night vision lens zoomed in. He saw shadows, massive, low to the ground, eyes glowing in the dark. One of them lunged, ripped a gun in half like paper. Another knocked a man flying into a snowbank. No screams, only fear. Inside the station, Cole watched from the roof. A shadow moved beside him, silent, warm, four-legged, the largest blood claw. It didn't look at him, but it stood there, guarding, protecting. Cole didn't give commands. He didn't need to. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was repayment by morning. It was over. The mercs were gone, dragged back to their ships, wounded, broken, silent. Voss was the last to leave. He looked at Cole, bloody and shivering. "What are those things?" Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Voss pointed a trembling hand at him. "They don't protect humans, not even their own kind." Cole stepped forward, eyes steady. "Maybe they don't protect humans," he said. "Maybe they protect those who don't leave children to die in the snow." The ships lifted off and vanished into the clouds. No one said a word for a long time. Then Mira stepped forward, whispering, "You didn't even call them." Cole shook his head. "Didn't have to." Later that day, while repairing the damaged wall, Cole found something strange near the breach, a chunk of dark metal, curved, claw-sliced, still warm. On it was carved a symbol, not blood claw, not human, something new. He held it up. Kaylari studied it and frowned. "It's a warning symbol. Not for us. For others." "What does it mean?" She translated slowly. "This den is under watch. Harm it, and you face the wild." That night, Cole stood on the deck again. A light snowfall drifted around him. Far in the distance, something moved. Just a shadow, but it paused, watched, then bowed its massive head once, and vanished into the cold. The bond was sealed. The debt was honored, but something more had grown. Not just respect, allegiance. The fighting was over, but the bond wasn't. Days passed. No more enemies came. The station was calm again. But Cole, Raynor felt something pulling at him. A quiet call, like a heartbeat in the wind. He could no longer pretend this was just a job. Something had changed. He had changed. One evening, just before sunset, a package appeared near the station's gate. No, one saw who left it. Inside was a thick fur-lined cloak, black, silver-striped, clearly blood claw made. Tucked inside was a carved bone pendant, shaped like a curled paw print. Kalari examined it. "This is not just a gift," she said. "It's an invitation." Cole nodded slowly. "It's time I went back." He left the next morning, alone again. But this time, he knew he wouldn't be alone for long. As he crossed the ice plains, the wind shifted, and from the mist, they appeared. 3 blood claws, silent, proud, watching. One stepped forward, the one who had guarded him during the attack. Without a word, it turned and began to walk. Cole followed. They traveled through ice valleys and deep ridges until the land changed, no longer smooth and flat, but carved, glowing with soft blue crystal veins. They entered a wide cave hidden behind a frozen waterfall. Inside was a world of light. The walls shimmered with heat. Pools of warm water steamed gently. Strange plants clung to the walls. There were more blood claws here, old ones, young ones, families. And at the far end of the cave sat the elder matriarch, massive, white-furred, eyes like winter stars. She rose slowly as Cole approached. All others bowed. He didn't. He simply placed a hand over his chest, over the mark that still faintly glowed. The matriarch nodded. "Human who saved cubs," she said, her voice deep and slow. "You gave warmth in the cold. You brought life into death. Now you must understand who we are." What followed was not a ceremony. It was a lesson. The matriarch showed him carvings, stories, of the bloodclaw's past. Once they had lived across the stars. But then the wars came. The hunters came, and their kind fell. Only a few clans survived. Zerun was their last true home. They had made a vow: never trust the firewalkers again. Never forget the betrayals, but Cole? He had not come with fire. He had come with warmth and no weapon, only a jacket. That night, Cole shared a meal with the matriarch's family. The same 2 cubs he had rescued curled beside him, no longer small, but not yet full-grown. One placed its head in his lap. The other guarded his back as he slept. No words were spoken, but no words were needed. By morning, the matriarch placed something heavy in his hands, a stone pendant carved from Zerun's deepest crystal. "You are now guardian in flesh. You may walk our grounds, speak our name, and when the howl rises, we will hear you." Cole bowed his head. "I'll protect this land," he said. "I'll protect you." When he returned to the station 2 days later, the staff stood in silence. His coat was now marked with claw symbols. His pendant glowed softly, and around his presence, even the wind seemed to pause. Mira walked beside him on the observation deck that evening. "So, what are you now? What are you?" she asked. He looked out across the plains, thought for a moment, then said, "Still a foreman." Then he smiled, but also something more. That night, as he lay in his bunk, he glanced at the carved pendant hanging from the ceiling. He whispered, "You came for your young, and then you came for me." And from somewhere far away in the dark hills, a single low howl answered. He had walked into the storm to save 2 forgotten lives, and the wild had not forgotten him. The skies over Zerun turned black at noon. The wind didn't howl, it screamed. Foreman Cole Rayner stood on the station roof, coat flapping violently, eyes locked on the horizon. Lightning cracked in strange colors: green, purple, white. The alert sirens echoed across the outpost. Kalari ran to him. "This isn't a normal storm." "I know," Cole said. "This was no normal weather. This was a planet breaker. The systems failed one by one. First the satellite uplink, then the outer shields, then the generator started to flicker. This is bad," Mira said. "This is real bad." The weather drones showed walls of snow and ice moving toward them like a solid wave. Inside it, frozen rock and debris swirled like bullets. No ship could fly in it, no escape. "We have to evacuate to the deep shelter," Kalari said. "Not everyone will fit," Mira replied. Cole stood in the center of the room. quiet, thinking. Then, he turned toward the command console and started typing. "Wait," Kalari said. "What are you doing?" Cole looked at her. "I'm staying on the surface," she froze. "No, you'll be killed. I'll seal the gate manually from the outside. It's the only way the lower level survives the impact. There must be another way." He shook his head, then handed her his pendant, the one carved by the blood claws. "Tell them I did it with honor," he said. Kalari grabbed his arm. "Don't do this. I have to." Then softly, "It's what they would have done for me." The wind tore at him as he stepped outside. Snow whipped his face. The sky was falling. Cole reached the manual gate controls and began turning the frozen wheels, locking the blast doors that would protect the shelter below. His gloves burned with cold. His breath turned to crystals. And still, he turned the wheel. The storm reached the edge of the station. The air pulsed. The temperature dropped another 20 degrees. The world began to vanish into white. But before it could swallow him, they came. From the ridge, through the roaring blizzard, dark shapes emerged, massive, proud, glowing eyes cutting through the snow. Blood claws. 5, 10, then more. Leading them, the matriarch herself. They rushed through the storm, forming a wide circle around Cole. Their bodies blocked the wind, their fur cracked with frost. Their claws dug deep into the ice, and then they howled. One long, deep, ancient cry. And the storm slowed, just slightly. Cole fell to his knees, overwhelmed. The matriarch stepped forward, lowered her head, touched his forehead with hers, and in his ear, in a voice only he could hear, "No guardian dies alone." Together, the blood claws stood with him as the storm slammed into the outpost. They braced as one. Ice shattered around them. Lightning struck the ground, but the shelter below held firm, and above, the wild stood unbroken. Hours passed. When the sky finally cleared, the station was buried, but it was alive. Cole opened his eyes to soft light and falling snow. He was still on the roof, half frozen, barely breathing, but warm fur pressed against his back. A cub, one of the same he had saved. Long ago, now fully grown, had curled around him like a shield. He smiled. "Good to see you again." When the others dug their way out and found him, they stopped in silence. Cole stood among a dozen blood claws covered in snow and scars, but alive. Kalari placed a hand over her heart and bowed. So did Mira. So did the crew. Because what they saw was no longer a foreman. He was the wild's chosen. Later that night, the matriarch left him with a final gift. A claw-shaped pendant carved from ice crystal that would never melt. On it, a single phrase was burned in glowing runes. He warmed the lost. He guarded the gate. He stood when the wild did howl. He is now of the blood. Cole never left Zerun. He became more than station leader. He became guardian of the wild, the only human with the right to cross into Bloodclaw territory freely, and every year when the cold winds howled across the plains, the station lights burned bright because they still watched, and he still remembered the day the wild didn't just fight beside him, the day the ice bowed to him,